Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
Growing up in a small town, my grandparents raised me while my parents traveled. They taught me to be polite, handle problems with patience, and take care of myself. My car had been making this strange rattling noise whenever I turned left. At first, I ignored it, partly because I'm not mechanically inclined and partly because I was hoping it would magically fix itself. After 3 weeks of increasingly concerning rattles, my spouse finally put their foot down. My spouse insisted during breakfast that I needed to get the car checked before our weekend drive to their mother's house. They didn't want us getting stranded halfway there because of my stubbornness about visiting a mechanic. They were right, of course. So I made an appointment at the local service station for that morning. Since my spouse's car was also due for an oil change, we decided to drive separately, leave their car, and then head home together in mine after it was checked out. I arrived first and parked in the customer waiting area. My spouse texted they were running about 10 minutes behind, so I settled in with a podcast to pass the time. I was just learning about the mating habits of anglerfish. Fascinating and terrifying, by the way, when a tap on my window startled me. A woman in her mid-40s with highlighted hair and oversized sunglasses gestured for me to roll down my window. I paused my podcast and obliged. The woman asked if the red truck across the street was mine. I was confused since I was clearly sitting in a silver sedan, not a truck. I looked around and spotted the red pickup with scrap metal in the bed she was referring to. I told her no, it wasn't mine. She then asked if a washing machine would fit in that truck. Still not understanding what was happening, I replied conversationally. I said I thought it probably would fit since the bed looked large enough, though I mentioned it was already full of scrap metal. I suggested she might want to ask inside since I wasn't knowledgeable about trucks and was just waiting for my spouse. The woman pointed to a washing machine sitting on the curb a couple houses down and asked if I could have someone go pick it up. That's when I realized she thought I worked at the service station, despite the fact that I was sitting in a customer's car in the customer waiting area. I explained that the truck wasn't mine. Her expression changed instantly, her smile tightening at the edges. She asked why I couldn't just have someone else drive it, demanding to know what the problem was. Her tone had shifted from friendly to demanding so quickly that I was momentarily stunned. Then I felt that familiar sensation of someone expecting me to solve their problems, despite having no obligation to do so. I launched into a detailed explanation of the obvious differences between my silver sedan and the red truck she was pointing to. I pointed out that since I was waiting for my spouse in this car, not that truck, I couldn't possibly put something in a vehicle I wasn't operating. I added that fitting a washing machine in my sedan would be absurd, like trying to fit an elephant in a mailbox, and there would be no room for my spouse, who would certainly be inconvenienced by sharing space with a washing machine. I smiled pleasantly, hoping the absurdity of my explanation would help her realize her mistake. It did not. The woman clarified that she obviously didn't expect me to put the washing machine in my car. She was telling me to either get out of my car and use that truck to pick up the washing machine or go inside and have someone else do it. At this point, I was more amused than annoyed. I explained that I didn't tell the people inside the station what to do except when telling them my car wouldn't work and then paying them to fix it. Her eyes lit up with a new understanding, an incorrect one. She suggested that maybe I should start telling people what to do if I was paying them. She insisted that she just needed me to have someone grab the truck and get the washing machine, complaining that it was an eyesore and questioning why this was such a hassle. It dawned on me that she now thought I was the owner of the service station. I decided it was time to lay everything out clearly. I methodically explained all the misunderstandings that had occurred, how she had mistaken me for an employee despite me clearly being a waiting customer, how she had asked someone in a car if a truck belonged to them, how she had failed to recognize I was just a customer, and then incorrectly assumed I owned the place. I pointed out the absurdity of expecting a car mechanic to pick up a washing machine that she had apparently abandoned on the sidewalk. reminding her that this was an auto repair shop, not an appliance store or waste disposal service. I concluded that all these misunderstandings were why this interaction had become such a hassle. Her face went through a fascinating series of expressions: confusion, realization, and finally, horror. She slapped her hand over her mouth and repeatedly exclaimed that she was an idiot, apologizing profusely. Then she hurried away, her face bright red with embarrassment. As she speed walked to her car, I noticed my spouse pulling in. They parked next to me and got out. My spouse asked what was going on, noting that the woman looked like she wanted the ground to swallow her whole. As I explained the bizarre interaction, we both laughed until tears came to our eyes. Just then, the service manager came out to greet us, looking confused. The manager asked if everything was okay out here. I assured him everything was fine and joked that someone had mistaken me for the owner of the place. I offered to start coming in on weekends to help manage things if he wanted. The service manager chuckled and shook their head, saying no thanks and that one boss around the place was plenty. As we walked into the service station, I caught a glimpse of the red truck owner actually loading the washing machine into their pickup. Apparently, they had agreed to take it after all. Maybe the woman had found the right person to ask, after thoroughly embarrassing herself with the wrong one first. It had been one of those days where everything that could go wrong did go wrong. My alarm didn't go off, I spilled coffee on my favorite shirt, and my boss decided today was a perfect day to criticize every little thing I did. By the time 5 o'clock rolled around, all I wanted was to get home, collapse on the couch, and forget this day ever happened. I drive a small Honda Civic, nothing fancy, but it gets the job done. Downtown traffic during rush hour is always a nightmare, but today seemed exceptionally bad. Construction had closed off 2 lanes on Main Street and everyone was fighting to merge into the remaining space. I was in the left lane, driving a bit under the speed limit because, well, there was nowhere to go. The traffic was stop and go, and I was just trying to maintain a safe distance from the car in front of me. That's when I noticed a sleek black BMW riding my tail in my rearview mirror. The driver was a middle-aged woman. She was gesturing behind her steering wheel, clearly unhappy with my driving speed. I tried to ignore her, but she kept inching closer and closer to my bumper. After about 3 minutes of this, she started honking. Short, angry bursts at first, then one long, continuous honk that made my already throbbing headache worse. I looked in my mirror again and could see her mouth moving rapidly, likely cursing me out even though I couldn't hear her. I did what any reasonable person would do. I maintained my speed and focused on the road ahead. There was literally nowhere for me to go any faster. This seemed to infuriate her even more. Suddenly, she swerved into the right lane, accelerated, and pulled up right next to my car. Her window was down and she was screaming at me. She yelled at me, demanding to know if I was kidding and telling me to learn how to drive. She called me an idiot and shouted that the left lane was for passing. I kept my eyes forward, trying to ignore her, which only made things worse. She continued shouting, demanding that I look at her while she was talking to me. Against my better judgment, I looked over. The veins in her neck were bulging, her face red with rage. She was so fixated on yelling at me that she wasn't even looking at the road. She accused me of thinking I owned the road and said people like me shouldn't even have a license. Then came the middle finger. Not just a quick flash, but a sustained theatrical display. She held it up high, making sure I got a good, long look at it, all while keeping pace with my car and not watching where she was going. I suggested through my window that she should really watch the road. She couldn't hear me through the closed windows, but she could read my lips. This sent her into an even greater fury. She angrily told me not to tell her what to do and demanded to know who I thought I was. She was so caught up in her tirade that she completely missed what was happening ahead of us. Just 100 yards up, traffic had come to a complete stop. Blue and red lights were flashing, a couple of police cars had someone pulled over, partially blocking the right lane. I began to slow down, applying my brakes gradually, but Karen, she was still staring at me, still flipping me off, still completely oblivious to what was directly in front of her. It happened so fast. One second she was beside me, hurling insults, and the next, wham! The sound of metal crunching against metal filled the air as her BMW slammed right into the back of one of the police cruisers. Her airbag deployed, throwing her back against her seat. The cop car lurched forward a few feet from the impact. I managed to come to a complete stop, safely distanced from the accident. For a moment, I just sat there processing what had just happened. Then I couldn't help it. I started laughing. It wasn't just a chuckle. It was full-blown, tears in my eyes laughter. Through my rearview mirror, I watched as two officers approached her car. Karen stumbled out, her sunglasses askew, her perfectly styled hair now a mess. She was gesturing wildly, already trying to explain herself. Even from a distance, I could tell she was flustered, pointing down the road, presumably at me, and then back at the police car. One officer was checking the damage to the cruiser while the other was taking notes as Karen continued her animated explanation. Neither of them seemed particularly sympathetic to whatever story she was spinning. They hadn't noticed me sitting a safe distance away, too focused on dealing with the woman who had just rear-ended a police car. As traffic started to crawl forward in the left lane, I decided it was time to head home. I moved slowly past the scene, trying not to make it obvious that I was the subject of Karen's wild gesticulations. The last glimpse I caught in my mirror was of her being handed what looked like a citation. The rest of my drive home was surprisingly pleasant. Sometimes karma works in mysterious ways. Other times it's as straightforward as watching an entitled road rager crash into a police car because they were too busy trying to intimidate you to watch the road. I'm in my late 30s now, but this all started when I turned 30. My husband and I had been married for 5 years at that point, both happily pursuing our careers. We had 2 cats and a dog that filled our home with all the chaos and love we needed. We had discussed children early in our relationship and both agreed it wasn't for us. We enjoyed our freedom, our sleep, and our disposable income too much to change our lifestyle. Our families eventually accepted our decision, though my mother-in-law would occasionally make comments at holiday gatherings about never getting to be a grandmother. We learned to brush these off with practiced smiles and quick subject changes. But strangers, complete random strangers, seemed to think my reproductive plans were community property. It started with casual comments from co-workers and acquaintances. Then it spread to people I barely knew, like my dental hygienist or the cashier at the grocery store. But the breaking point came at a local plant nursery. One sunny Saturday, I was browsing through some herbs, deciding which ones would work best in the small garden box on our patio. The nursery employee, a woman probably in her 60s, approached to offer assistance. She asked if I cooked a lot at home because the basil plants were thriving that year. I told her that I did love fresh herbs and was looking to start a small herb garden. She then made a comment about how my husband must appreciate home-cooked meals. I just nodded politely, used to these assumptions. Then she asked if there were any little ones at home enjoying mommy's cooking. I simply replied that it was just my husband and our pets. She then warned me that I shouldn't wait too long to have children. She shared that she had her 3rd child at 35, and the doctor called it a geriatric pregnancy. She finished by reminding me that my biological clock was ticking. She said this while making a ticking motion with her finger, complete with tick-tock sound effects. My face burned with embarrassment and anger. This woman knew nothing about me. What if I had fertility issues? What if I'd experienced pregnancy loss? What if my husband and I simply didn't want children? I mumbled something and quickly paid for my plans, fuming the entire drive home. When I told my husband about it, he was equally appalled but unsurprised. These comments had become so frequent that we joked about making bingo cards. That night, as I stroked my aging dog's gray muzzle and thought about how much I loved this creature who asked nothing of me except food and affection, an idea formed. The next time someone asked about my reproductive plans, I would make them regret it. My opportunity came the following week at a work conference. I was chatting with a group of people I just met during a networking break. A random colleague asked if I had any children. I replied that I didn't, not yet. They then warned me not to wait too long because the clock was ticking. I took a deep breath, thought about how my sweet old dog wouldn't be with me forever, and let my eyes well up with tears. With a cracking voice, I told them we had been trying. I let a single tear fall down my cheek and excused myself, saying I needed a moment. I walked away quickly, leaving the person standing there with their mouth hanging open, hand halfway to their face in horrified realization. I ducked into the bathroom, waited 5 minutes while checking my email, then returned composed as if nothing had happened. The colleague avoided me for the rest of the conference. It worked so beautifully that I decided to make it my standard response. From my mid-30s until I hit 40, I used this tactic on approximately 50 strangers who felt entitled to ask about my reproduction plans. The grocery store clerk who said I should get started while I was still young. Tears. The new hairdresser who asked if I was planning for babies soon while cutting my hair. Tears and a quick exit to the bathroom. My husband's co-worker's wife who wondered loudly at a company picnic when we were finally going to start a family. Sudden sobbing followed by him escorting me away, trying not to laugh. The best was when I ran into that same nursery employee a year later. She apparently didn't remember me but started the same routine when I mentioned looking for plants that were pet safe. She commented that pets were wonderful, but nothing compared to children. She then began to ask if my husband and I had thought about having kids, but I didn't even let her finish. I just thought about how my oldest cat had recently been diagnosed with kidney disease and let the waterworks flow. With a trembling voice, I told her we had been trying and it had been a difficult journey. I covered my face and hurried away, leaving her standing among the potted ferns, looking absolutely mortified. When I peeked back from behind a display of garden gnomes, another customer was giving her the death glare. I know some might think this was dramatic or unnecessary, but here's the thing. It worked. And maybe it made these people think twice before asking such personal questions to other women they encountered. You never know what struggles someone is facing or what choices they've made for themselves. My husband and I are still happily child-free by choice. Our home is peaceful, our schedules are our own, and the only midnight crying I deal with is when our new kitten wants attention. As I approach 45, the questions have finally stopped. Either I'm now officially considered too old to reproduce, or word has gotten around town about the woman who bursts into tears when asked about having children. Either way, mission accomplished. I work as a nurse at the local hospital on the night shift. After finishing a brutal 12-hour shift, I stopped at Super Safe to grab some groceries before heading home to crash. I was exhausted, with the fluorescent lights giving me a headache, but I needed to get my shopping done. In the toiletries aisle, I noticed an elderly man looking confused, staring at the shelves with that lost expression I've seen countless times on my patients' faces. Despite my fatigue, I stopped to help. I politely asked if he needed assistance. He explained with relief that he was trying to find a hair product for his wife but couldn't remember the exact name, just that it was something for volume. I told him it was probably volumizing spray or mousse and suggested we check the styling section. As we walked, I asked about the bottle's appearance. He described it as a purple can his wife had used for years. After examining several products, his face lit up when I found the right one. It was such a small thing, but clearly important to him. Just then, a store employee approached with a security guard trailing behind. She told me I needed to leave immediately for interfering with store operations and disturbing customers. I was completely shocked and explained I was just helping the gentleman find a product. She claimed they'd received complaints about me approaching and bothering customers. The security guard stood with arms crossed, looking serious. I was utterly baffled. The elderly man defended me, pointing out that nobody from the staff had offered him help. The employee dismissed him, saying it didn't concern him. When he insisted it absolutely did concern him as the customer I was helping, she simply stated they had a strict policy against solicitation. I expressed disbelief at being accused of harassment for helping someone find hairspray. The elderly man, his face reddening, demanded to speak to a manager. The employee told him to calm down, saying they were just following policy. Too tired to argue, I decided to leave despite having a half-filled cart of groceries I needed. The elderly man urged me to stay and fight it, but I thanked him and explained I was just too exhausted. As I headed toward the exit, I heard the elderly man shout that he was leaving too and never shopping there again. He hustled out after me, still clutching the purple hairspray, and said he would file a formal complaint. He showed me his phone and explained he belonged to a local community Facebook group with over 3,000 members, and his daughter ran the neighborhood newsletter. He promised that by tomorrow everyone would know how they treated Good Samaritans in this town. 2 days later, the store manager called to apologize. The elderly man had not only posted about the incident online but also contacted corporate headquarters and started a boycott among his friends at the senior center. The manager offered me a $100 gift card and assured me the employee had been retrained. I accepted the apology but decided to shop elsewhere. I guess no good deed goes unpunished. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.